Great greetings, everyone. Nat Jamedy here, and welcome to a SpongeBob review of another Season 7 episode, because this is very original. There's gonna be no variety. We're just gonna review episodes from Season 7, and then when we run out of episodes, we're just gonna redo them all.
So hello, everybody.
But in all seriousness, we're gonna be doing the Season 7 episode, A Day Without Tears.
Which I have just seen for the first time.
And I've seen for, like, the 8th time.
In this episode, SpongeBob's crying a lot. He's getting on Squidward's nerves. So Squidward basically bets him 2 o'clock in the afternoon that he cannot go the rest of the day until midnight crying. And the bet is if SpongeBob cries, he has to do Squidward's yard work for a year. And if he doesn't cry, then Squidward has to spend the night at a slumber party at SpongeBob's house. So SpongeBob doesn't cry at all for the rest of the day at work. And so Squidward walks home with SpongeBob and tries to trick him into crying using different methods.
But I felt like maybe Squidward should have done what SpongeBob was crying at in the beginning. Like, he should have ripped his shirt, made him stub his toe, play that song that was on the radio earlier.
Or said, hey, SpongeBob, why don't you cook us some onions for supper? The interesting thing is, the bet was that if Squidward lost, he'd have to spend the night at SpongeBob's house. Which he ends up doing, for the most part anyway, trying to trick him into crying. Right before midnight, he reads him a sad story. SpongeBob starts to cry almost, and the clock strikes midnight, and then he cries.
And I like how SpongeBob's tears literally flood the city.
Not an inappropriate way to end the episode.
However, it is a bit predictable that Squidward would lose at the end.
And ends up spending the rest of the night.
He was at SpongeBob's house until midnight. It's only like 5 hours until you're able to go home from the slumber party.
Yeah, so that was kind of ironic.
I have to say, there's this weird scene earlier on where SpongeBob calls Patrick that leads to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that made no sense.
I mean, I guess it's kind of cool to see an insight on SpongeBob's actual life outside of, like, these random storylines that just happen for, like, literally no reason. That's how the episode should have begun. Like, SpongeBob was talking to Patrick, and then Patrick was like, the box got stolen, or something like that. That made SpongeBob cry, and then that's how it started. Rather than just it randomly happen at the Krusty Krab midway through the episode.
Because it's not like them to have something in an episode that doesn't lead to something else. Usually when they mention something like that, it would lead to something.
Either it'll actually affect the plot, or it'll very loosely affect something.
Yeah. That
was just kind of completely pointless. I mean, you could start an episode off that way, but just having it randomly happen in the middle of a plot just feels really out of place and nowhere. The humor in the episode is kind of mixed, because the first half of the episode is almost literally just nothing but SpongeBob crying at random stuff. Like him ripping his favorite shirt, which looks exactly the same as all the other shirts. I guess the joke is he's crying over something that looks exactly the same as everything else, but it's not really that funny.
I'm actually pretty impressed with what they did with Squidward in the episode, because Squidward actually had some funny lines. At the beginning of the episode, he broke the fourth wall, talking to the audience that he has to work with SpongeBob every day, and it was, I think he actually has some good moments in this episode.
So overall, when it comes to A Day Without Tears, I personally think that it's mediocre. The fact that they've already kind of done the same plot before earlier, the fact that the first half is nothing but crying, and even though it does get slightly better in the second half, I kind of wish that the entire episode was what the second half was like, and the first half is bad, the second half is decent, so that ends up being a mixed episode.
And I actually think there's more good throughout the episode than Nat does, so I'm going to give this episode a good. I laughed a couple of times out loud in this episode, so I'm giving it a good. A low good, but a good. And I think this was actually a good Squidward episode, because I don't think he was tortured any in this episode, and he wasn't overly cruel for no reason. I think this was a really good Squidward episode, and so I do recommend it. I think you should check it out.
I'd recommend it if you can survive the first half.
It's only 10 minutes long, and I actually think there's good stuff in the first half, so I think the whole episode's good.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.